Reports from the New York Times and Reuters has also indicated that Iran still has hundreds, if not thousands, of small boats that can lay mines or perform hit-and-run attacks on top of their existing land missiles and drones, which I'm sure they're building at a furious pace right now to restock what they have. And this is on top of existing land missiles and drones.
Congressman just cornered one of America's top military commanders in a heated exchange that left the entire room stunned. What started as a simple question about the laws of war quickly turned into a tense confrontation over accountability, leadership, and the military's own rulebook. The congressman repeatedly demanded a direct answer, but the admiral refused to say the exact words written in the Pentagon's Law of War manual. The frustration exploded in real time, with accusations flying and lawmakers interrupting the hearing. Watch this intense Capitol Hill moment as the pressure builds and the questioning reaches a boiling point.
Both for being here, and I speak for myself and I think everybody on this panel. We appreciate the incredible professionalism of the men and women in uniform and the job that they do every day with professionalism and heroism, and thank you for doing that. But we do have a number of questions about how we win this war and end it going forward, and those are usually political questions related to political leadership. The men and women in uniform execute those orders, and they have demonstrated that they're certainly the best in the world. But Admiral Cooper, you mentioned that the current mission right now is basically the U.S. blockade of Iranian ships or ships that are transiting the Straits of Hormuz to Iranian ports. That's in response to Iran basically effectively shutting down the Strait of Hormuz before that. As you know, experts across the political spectrum and multiple administrations, political administrations, have all agreed that a war against Iran's first moves would be to mine the Straits of Hormuz to prevent tanker traffic. But despite these known risks and repeated claims that the DoD has planned, and I'm sure you have plans. I attended the War College. I've served in the Navy. There are no shortage of plans that we have. That you have plans to deal with the closing of the strait. We had 4 minesweepers that were stationed in the Middle East were just retired last year, and our remaining minesweepers were either stationed in Japan or not pre-positioned in the region. This is despite public reporting that we currently already have limited unmanned mine clearance capacity. And reports from the New York Times and Reuters has also indicated that Iran still has hundreds, if not thousands, of small boats that can lay mines or perform hit-and-run attacks on top of their existing land missiles and drones, which I'm sure they're building at a furious pace right now to restock what they have. And this is on top of existing land missiles and drones. The American people, as we all know, are already paying higher prices in the United States. Inflation is up as a result of chaotic tariffs that President Trump has put into place. And now, thanks to this war and the Straits closure, they're paying high gas prices that continue to rise as well, putting a strain on family budgets. So my question for you is, if there was advanced planning, and I'm sure there was advanced planning about the Straits closure, why were the minesweepers not pre-positioned in the region when it had been publicly reported that we already have limited unmanned mine clearance capacities? When you have a plan, usually before you execute the plan, you make sure that all your assets are in place to actually execute that plan. So it's curious that those assets were not there. Why?
Senator, I think best to talk specific tactics and operations in a classified environment. What I can say here is we did have sufficient and continue to have sufficient mine clearance capability in the theater. Because it happened to not be in those 4 vessels that were decommissioned after decades of service, I think is an interesting point. The support and the ability to conduct countermining comes in a lot of different flavors, best to discuss in a classified environment.
And I don't mean to get into that. I understand that totally. You don't want to do it. But it's clear that there is a concern about mines. We aren't seeing ships go through there. Commercial companies do not want to go through the straits. They're not going to put their ships at risk so they don't feel safe. To me, that speaks volumes as to whether or not it's safe, that there is a real concern there. And we know that the Iranians have significant capabilities to deal with that. You know, I asked a previous question related to strategy and really talked about von Clausewitz on war, which is, as you know, the seminal text on strategy that is taught in all the war colleges. and you know it better than I will ever know it. The concept of that is that in order to win a war, you've got to know the center of gravity of your enemy, and you have to be focused on able to neutralize that. What is the center of gravity in Iran? How are you planning? And that's a military decision as to what is the center of gravity. That's the kind of advice you would give a president. What is the center of gravity?
So I really would defer to our policymakers to determine what they view from a policy perspective as the center of gravity. From a military perspective, we're focused on achieving military objectives, which is exactly what our men and women have done, and they've done it extremely well.
Well, you do, as you know, and every war plan has a center of gravity that you identify, and then you work around that. So there is the war plan that we have for Iran would have the center of gravity. Why can't you share what that is? That's in the past. It's been before we knew the center of gravity in the Persian Gulf War for Iraq. Colin Powell said it was the Republican Guard troops, Iraq's elite unit there. Obama administration in Afghanistan, Admiral Mike Mullen defined the center of gravity as building Afghan government support. They made this public. They weren't hiding the center of gravity, and our enemy knows what our center of gravity is, and we know what theirs is. There's no reason to keep that secret because the American people have a right to know what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and that's outlined very clearly in that term, a part of every military plan that is put forward.
Yes, sir. I agree. Every war plan has a center of gravity, and those war plans are classified. I'd be more than happy to talk about it in a classified environment.
Fair enough. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Chairman Wicker, and thank you.
That exchange immediately sparked backlash inside and outside the hearing room. Critics argued the Admiral avoided giving a straightforward answer to one of the most basic principles in the law of armed conflict, while supporters claimed the questioning crossed the line into a personal attack. The Congressman ended the confrontation by calling the response extremely disappointing and saying America's service members deserve better leadership. One thing is certain. This dramatic Capitol Hill showdown is now fueling major debate over military accountability, transparency, and how top commanders respond under pressure.